creating a leadership culture of learning. Well, before I do that, today we're excited because we launched our new show, Born to Climb, and it is filled with just some amazing interviews of people who've done some fantastic things to inspire you, to strengthen you. The premise of the show is that you were born to climb. In other words, we're made to walk uphill, and our best always comes out of us when we're pushing against something. Of course, we can do those times of rest, but there's an innate desire inside of all of us to do something great, to climb a mountain, to run a marathon, write a book. And the show is all about that, to inspire you. But anyways, what I want to talk to you about, and there's the link. You can go check it out, jamesrobbins.com/podcast, and would love to have you as one of the people in the community there. But I want to talk about leadership cultures, leadership learning, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because one of the things that we constantly find a challenge is when we go into a company and we're training the leaders, depends on what level of leaders we're training, depends what program we're bringing in. But there's always, especially when you're working with frontline managers, there's always that sense of, hey, we don't have time. That's why 9 Minutes on Monday, by the way, has been so popular for people, because it's this way to grow in your leadership, and with only a little bit of time. It's just consistency, right? Doing the little things consistently. And so when people go through 9 Minutes on Monday, they learn these 9 engagement drivers, but it boils down to this 9-minute template that they follow every Monday morning. But more importantly than that, when they're going through the 10 weeks with us, what happens is it gets them in the habit of carving out a tiny bit of space for their own development. And I would say the number one pushback that we get, that any other leadership training development company gets, is people pushing back saying, we don't have time for this. And some companies, I know some leadership companies, they want your people to carve out, a day here, 5 hours here, and most people feel like, I just don't have time. So I want to share with you a better way to train your leaders. And in fact, what's not a great way to train your leaders is just doing let's just have 1-day workshop, and then we'll do that once a year. That's not a great way to train your leaders. And hey, we do 1-day workshops, right? Like, we do that stuff. But I'm telling you, the best way to train your leaders is to create a culture of learning about leadership. So let me give you an example. I know of a large sales company. They're actually a training company, but their sales team is large. I don't know how many people are on it, at least 50. They have extensive training for their salespeople, like a whole portal with all these sales courses. A little bit like we have a portal of all these leadership courses. Well, they have this portal of all sales courses, and they expect every day, every single person on the sales team spends 30 minutes in that portal. They could have already gone through everything in that portal. Doesn't matter. 30 minutes in that portal. And they prioritize that. And that's the first part of their day. So when their salespeople come in, maybe they get their coffee first, and then they open up and they train. And they spend 30 minutes training. Even if they've been selling for 10 years, they just keep doing training. And they're one of the top sales organizations in the world. Now, imagine that from a leadership perspective. And you don't need to carve out 30 minutes, but imagine if you had an expectation that if somebody is a leader in your company, that they have to spend 15 minutes of leadership training first thing in the morning before the day gets on. So imagine you got your managers coming in and they're busy and they just, fought traffic or whatever, and they get in there, and then all of a sudden they got to calm down. They got to open up a portal or a book or a course or whatever it might be, and maybe they're going to spend 15 minutes on how to have better accountability conversations, how to do goal setting, how to do better performance feedback, how to do deposits, withdrawals with their staff, regardless, whatever the topic is. And they spent that time. Even if what they learned that day, they're not going to use later, the valuable thing here is the habit of, I'm going to spend 15 minutes. because it's actually not even about the time. It's about the consistency, and it's about the message that you send in terms of what's important in our organization. So I don't run a sales organization. Of course, we do sales for people to do our leadership training. But if I had a sales organization and I had this big sales team, then I would expect them every day to sharpen the saw. Here's the thing I've learned about most leaders, most managers, is most of them do not want to sharpen the saw on their own dime. They just don't. And I know that because even when, we've worked with leaders for decades now. And leadership is one of those skills that most people don't even want to spend their own money. If their company's not going to pay for it, they don't want to pay for it. Now, of course, that's not across the board. There's lots of people that will realize, hey, wait a minute, if I get better as a leader, that's going to help my career, and so let me invest in that, right? But most people put a higher priority on the clothes that they are going to spend money on to come to work than they are about the skills that's going to help them be a great leader. So it sends a great message when it just becomes the expectation, hey, leadership is important, and we're going to expect you to do it. And of course, there's no shortage of information out there. And what's most important is just you're doing it. Now, here's the thing. When people say, well, I don't have time, I totally get that. It's not unlike when people say, I don't have money. Have you ever been in a situation where you think, oh, I'd love to go on a vacation there, but I don't have the money right now. You say you don't have the money, and then all of a sudden your water heater leaks and runs all over the floor, and now you got to replace the floor. Well, you just do it, right? Like you find a way and you do it. And in the end, you're like, I could have used that money for the vacation, but then I wouldn't have had it for this. Or, let's take it down on a lower budget level. You might think, oh, I'd really like to do this thing. It's going to cost me $250. I'd really like to go to this concert and get great seats, but that would be a $250 ticket. I don't want to do that. And then you're driving, you get going too fast. Policeman pulls you over and you get a ticket for $250. And you're like, I don't have the money for that. But you find the money. You always find what you have to do. And so when people realize, I need to do 15 minutes of leadership training every day at the start of my day, and they're like, but I don't have time for that. No, you just have to make time. People will adjust. Because this is another thing I know. While people are busy, it's not like we're efficient, like that we're just jamming everything into 8 hours that we don't have even 15 minutes. No, it just means that we have to make some adjustments. And maybe there's some meetings that everyone doesn't need to be in. Maybe there is some things that a person can delegate. And so here's the thing. A manager starts doing more training and goes through a training on delegation, like we have this training called the Delegation Protocol. It's very eye-opening for people. And suddenly, people realize there's 5 hours of things I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing. And then they start getting that off their plate. And because they went through training that they didn't have time for, suddenly they have 5 extra hours. That's the importance of training. So if you want to create a leadership culture, like one of it that's a learning culture, then just make a mandate. 15 minutes a day, start of your day. It's the first thing you do. And then when you're done, get on with the rest of your activities. If you did that for 1 year with your managers, with all of your leaders, I guarantee you, you're going to have a different organization by the end of the year. As I close out here, just a reminder, we're so excited about this new podcast, Born to Climb. The first 4 episodes, I just want to go through them really quick. Vince Pacenti, if you've never heard of Vince, he was a guy who was a recreational skier and then just got this vision that wouldn't it be great to go to the Olympics? And so he quit his job and decided, I'm going to the Olympics. 4 years later, he got himself there. The next guest is someone by the name of Michael Kerr. Mike Kerr he is amazing. He's a lot of fun. And he's an expert at building cultures, healthy cultures that are fun. And in other words, to turn soul-sucking work environments. I know you don't have a soul-sucking work environment, right? Because no one thinks they do, but it's what your employees think. But it's about how to turn those cultures into energized, fun, productive cultures that produce amazing results. And so Michael Kerr's episode also was released today. The third on the list is Brent Gleason. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's an author, business owner, and anybody who's become a Navy SEAL is elite of the elite. And we had a great conversation about resilience, about tough things, about business. And the fourth episode that was also released today is a trauma therapist named Tara Miller. And Tara talks about resilience. Her book, Defiant, is soon coming out. And she said some great things that I'd never heard of before. And this idea of you have to regulate your nervous system. It doesn't matter how hard you work. If you don't do that, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. So make sure you go check those out, jamesrobbins.com/podcast. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, all the places that all you podcasters go. You'll find it there. But we'd love to hear your comments about the show. All right, that's it for today. Keep climbing.